Welcome again, guys. In this video we are going to be looking at how to draft a shoulder dart bustier. So we are going to be using the shoulder measurement first. We are going to divide the shoulder measurement by 2. In my case here, I'm using shoulder measurement of 16. So if I divide that by 2, it's going to be 8. Then I'm going to add the dart allowance. So the dart on the shoulder is going to be 2 inches. So I added 2 inches to it, making it 10. So I mark 10 on the shoulder. Mark the neck width, which is the neck wideness. I'm using 3.5 as my neck wideness. So I've marked that. I'm going to go downward by 1 inch at the end of the shoulder just to make my shoulder slope or shoulder slant, as you know it. So I've gone down by 1 inch. Now is for me to mark the slant from the end of the shoulder to the neck. After doing this, I'm going to mark the chest line, the bust line, and the under bust line. The chest line in my case here is 7 inches. You can always measure that on your customer's body. And my bust line here is 11 inches, and the under bust line here is 15 inches. After marking this point, I'm going to shift the tape rule upward to the end of the paper, from the shoulder line to the end of the paper, and get the measurement. So because I want to mark a straight line, if I do that, I'm going to have the chest line to be 7.5 here, and the bust line to be 11.5, and the under bust line 15.5. What I did was to measure, instead of measuring from the shoulder line, I measured from the whole of the paper just for me to get my straight line. So now I've gotten all the points that will help me in marking my straight line, so I can connect those points together and I'll have a straight line. After getting the straight line, I can label this one, which is the chest line, to be CL, the bust line to be BL, and the under bust line to be UBL. That's under bust line. So I'm going to move to the neck depth. So you know how deep you want the neck to be. So but for me here, I'm going to be using 5.5. Then I'm going to mark the neck with my French curve. You can use your free hand if you are good with free hand, but I'm going to be using this French curve since I want a round neck. In fact, you can mark a V-neck with your French curve. You can mark sweetheart neck with your French curve, provided if you know how to use the French curve very well. So after marking the neck, I'm going to move to the armhole. So to get the armhole depth, we are to divide the bust measurement by 6 and add half an inch to 1.5 inch to your results. So I've done that. In my own case, after dividing the bust by 6, I have my armhole depth to be 7.5. So I want to make a straight line from the shoulder to the armhole depth. So I'm going to mark a very straight line from the shoulder to the armhole depth before making the armhole curve with my French curve. So I'm going to be using the French curve also for the armhole curve. So you are just to place the French curve on it, letting the end of the French curve be on the depth of the armhole you marked earlier. So once you've done that, just mark and follow the shape of the French curve, and you have your armhole curve marked perfectly. Once we're done with the shoulder, the armhole, the chest line, bust line, and the under bust line, then we move to the dart itself. To mark the dart, we are going to be making use of the bust span measurement. That is the nipple to nipple measurement, the distance between the nipples. So we are going to be using bust span measurement of 9 inches, then divide it by 2. If I divide 9 inches by 2, I'm going to have 4.5. I mark 4.5 on the bust line, then mark the same thing on the under bust line. So I'm going to go to the shoulder, measure the distance between the neck width and the end of the shoulder. After measuring it, I'm going to divide it by 2 because I want the dart to be at the middle of the shoulder. So I'm going to divide it by 2, and I have mine here to be 3.25. You can work with your measurement, but I have mine to be 3.25. I'm going to connect from the bust and line to the under bust line, and from the bust line again to the shoulder line. That is after marking out all the points. Once I'm done with this, I'm going to start taking out the dart. I'm using dart size of 2 inches here. So I'm going to take out 1 inch on this side and 1 inch on the other side. So I'm going to go to the shoulder and also take out 2 inches dart, 1 inch on one side and 1 inch on the other side. Then connect from those 1 inch dart to the bust point. Remember, our dart will always stop on the bust point because we are creating this dart in order to create room for the breast, to create space for the breast. So we are almost done with the dart, with the drafting. So this, now we have the under bust dart created and the shoulder dart created. We can now proceed to taking the body measurement itself. So now we are going to proceed to taking the body measurement. We are using bust measurement of 40 inches here. So we are going to divide 40 inches by 4, and I have that to be 10. Then add your sewing allowance. Here I'm going to be using 2 inches as my sewing allowance, so making it 12 inches. Then I'm going to add the dart allowance around this point. So I'm going to measure the distance, the dart here. So I have it to be half an inch, then 12 inches plus half an inch, making it 12 and a half inches. So I'm going to go to the bust point, to the bust line. Remember, I used the bust measurement for the upper bust measurement, so I'm going to still retain the 12 inches, but here there is no that allowance. So going to the under bust line, I have the bust to be 30 inches. If I divide that by 4, it's going to be 7.5 plus my sewing allowance, making it 9.5, then plus the dart size. Remember, our dart is 2 inches, making it now 11 and a half. So I've marked 11 and a half. I'm going to connect with my ruler from the upper bust to the bust line and to the under bust line, and this is it. So you are to cut it out. Then remember, if you recall, I added the dart allowance to my shoulder measurement because I knew I'm going to be taking out the dart from the shoulder, and that my dart is going to be 2 inches size. So the shoulder measurement actually is 16 inches. I divided it by 2, making it 8. Then I was supposed to mark 8, but I went on adding 2 inches to it because of the dart. So if I should close the dart now, the shoulder will go back to normal. Remember, this side I'm shading that they are going to be waist. So if I should close the shoulder now, if I should close the shoulder, that the shoulder will go back to its normal measurement. So before, the shoulder was looking too wide, but once you close the dart, it will go to its normal shape. And once you close the shoulder dart, you see that the bust is shooting out because the dart itself is to create space for the bust. And if we close the under bust dart, it will shoot out more, it will create more space. Now looking at the shoulder, you can see that I did not cut the shoulder because after we close the shoulder dart, the shoulder slope or slant is going to lose its shape. So we are going to take another shoulder slant for it after closing the shoulder dart, and this is me doing that. Then once we go downward by an inch on the shoulder, the armhole depth will be affected. So we also have to go downward by an inch on the armhole depth. Then we can now mark the armhole curve with the French curve again. and so we can cut after marking the new shoulder slant or the shoulder slope, then the new armhole curve. Now we can cut them out. This is the final work. This is the final look of the work. You can open it and see. Once you open it, it will be flat. Then once we close the that, like after sewing, it will create space for the bust. And thank you for watching this video.